Hi, I'm Emma Green, and this is the Marketing Monologues podcast. And today we have Goda with us. So welcome, Goda.
Thank you so much.
So you did advertising and marketing at Lancaster University. So how did you choose that subject? Was it something that you knew that you wanted to do already, or was it something that interested you, or you knew that you wanted a career there?
So in my family, on my mum's side, everyone is quite a scientific person. So we've got physicists, computer engineers.
Okay, yeah.
And on my dad's side of the family, it's much more creative. So there's, musicians, artists. And I always felt like I'm kind of stuck between the two. I want to do something that is quite creative, but also something that does not entirely rely on inspiration.
Yes.
And when I discovered marketing, it really felt like that perfect blend between this is something that is quite science-based, there's theory behind it, but it's also quite creative.
The perfect mix.
Yes, absolutely.
So how did you find the course when you started it? Was it what you expected, or was there any surprises?
I absolutely love studying. I think I'm quite a nerd. So for me, studying and, just absorbing all of that knowledge and seeing all of the different ways that, we get sold to and how to do that was really, really interesting. Something that I found quite surprising actually is the different kind of the breadth of opportunities available in marketing.
Yes.
And actually towards the end of my degree, I really felt quite lost and there's so many options, right? And once you're in that industry, it just feels like, well, they're all completely different from one another, marketing, to businesses or advertising or, SEO, they are just completely different from one another.
Yes.
And so feeling like I have to figure out what it is specifically that I want to do. And that was actually quite surprising. I didn't expect to come across that.
So yeah, because I suppose now if you look for a job in marketing, it's very much like SEO manager or website development or social media manager, events manager. And there's then the roles that are marketing manager, and you think, well, what does that entail? Everything. It entails everything. So you've graduated university and then worked for Arriva.
Yes.
So how was that going from academia straight into industry and placing those skills in an actual role?
Do you know what? I think something that we all benefit from when we're 20 is that sort of confidence in that, well, I've completed the degree, I got a great grade, I must know everything.
Yes.
I think that's
no fear.
Yes.
Yeah.
With Arriva, I discovered it because it was one of the kind of rare marketing graduate schemes available in the Northwest.
Okay.
Most of these opportunities are usually in London. And so when I found that, I knew I wanted to live in Liverpool. And so it wasn't that it drew me, I had particular passion for buses. It was just a great opportunity. And, working in an international organization, learning from colleagues across Europe and just having a lot of those people a lot of people in marketing to speak to and see how they're working. Also see people from a completely different background than me, people in operations in bus industry. They've worked there for decades.
Yeah.
That was so interesting to kind of to see, to learn from. And I suppose to actually realize that it's not quite for me, especially at that time. I really wanted to find more creativity or more variability, and that's kind of what took me to that next step.
So the next step was agency work. So talk us through that. How was that going from Arriva to working with multiple clients?
It was an absolute complete change of scenery. It was a small agency as well, so working with Kenyans. So I moved from a multinational organization, Arriva, to a company of less than 20 people.
Okay, yeah.
It was such a change, but it was a great environment for me to learn. People around me were really passionate about what they do, really creative. And those varied clients, I think, having the opportunity to work with such varied clients is what really helped me feel more comfortable in kind of moving between different industries in the future. Because at the same time, I was working with a client that is, a shopping center or a college, as well as a blast-proof fire door manufacturer.
Okay, very different.
Very different, yes. So I think in those circumstances, you really have to rely on the basics. Who is it that we're talking to? What is it that we want to tell them?
Yeah.
What do we want them to do? Who is our customer? Who's our competition? And so being an agency worker, you kind of I think being in an agency, you benefit from being that outsider to your clients, so you can ask all of those questions. If you're working with a blast-proof fire door manufacturer, they don't expect you to actually know all the ins and outs of their industry.
Yes.
And so being able to ask those questions and see how that knowledge or how those different approaches, fit different industries, different audiences, I think that was really beneficial for my career moving forward.
Oh, so you kind of thrived off of working with all the different kind of like clients and industries and sectors at one time. Is there much like desk research required for yourself going from one to another? Like say if you're going from a manufacturer that's probably they don't expect you to know it, but they would probably help teach you some of the bits that they know that you will need to know, but also are you kind of expected to do a lot of desk research and take that upon yourself?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's something that's helpful for yourself to be comfortable in these meetings, to feel like, oh, I actually know what they're talking about. And, we kind of, I think working in an agency with clients, you almost speak slightly different languages, right? They know everything about their product. They know their audience or their competition. You know the marketing element that you're bringing to them.
Yeah.
And so I think such an important part of that is kind of that translation between, what do I mean when I say click-through rates or, reach. And the same way, by showing them, what skills you bring to to the table, you can also feel more comfortable in asking those questions, okay, well, this is what I found. Are my assumptions about your audience correct?
Yes. Yeah. And I suppose it is that where they may have gone to an agency because they want help in how to communicate better with their clients. You know how to communicate with clients, but you just need to know what the messaging is or the product itself.
Absolutely. And it's the time as well, isn't it? A marketing agency is additional resource to your team.
Yeah.
From their perspective, they don't have someone who can spend, 5 days a week creating social media content and, improving their messaging. That's what you're there for. So I think building those connections with your clients is so helpful in kind of making them feel like you are a part of their team, even if it is just for, a period of time.
Yeah. And did you find as well from your learning at university that there was a lot of skills that you could easily apply, or was it a case of like learning and developing new skills on the job as well?
I think it's a bit of both. I think naturally moving between different industries or different organizations, you kind of leave some things behind, and you also bring some things with you. And being surrounded by people who are more experienced than you, I think that's where the real learning comes from.
Yes.
Sitting down with your colleagues and asking them questions and asking, how would you do this? And have you tried it this different way that I've, perhaps studied or have taken from my previous organization, and just sort of building those connections and building on those skills together is, I think, where most of the learning comes from, really.
Yeah, it's kind of like learning on the job, isn't it? And then moving forward that way. So you went from 2 agencies and then joined Capacity, who are third sector, public sector supporting. So how did that kind of differ from working with SMEs and local businesses to then working kind of different sectors again?
I think moving to Capacity was just a completely kind of that change of scenery again. They are an organization that is primarily led by customers. So, it's very much, it's sort of user-led design. And so that was a complete shift from saying, okay, well, we have this product that we want to sell to these people, to saying, well, actually, our main question is, what should the product be like?
Yeah.
It's, that was a complete change of scenery. And also the language, everything was different about it. So many meetings that I found myself sitting and thinking, I have no idea what they're talking about.
More desk research.
Yes, absolutely. And, again, asking questions, asking about how do children's residential care homes work? What are the challenges there?
Yeah.
How do councils decide, how they spend their money, or, how they, why would they pay us for this project instead of doing it themselves? Asking those really basic questions and just showing up and saying, look, I'm not an expert in this, tell me about this, and then I can apply my skills to those comms messages, to the marketing work. I think just that honesty was so helpful in saying I don't know is actually such a powerful thing, because that's how you learn, instead of pretending that you are an expert in this thing that you've never come across before. That's not a recipe for success, is it?
No. And I suppose as well, there's probably a lot more sensitivities and there's a lot more regulations and things to consider rather than a product-based marketing campaign or strategy that you're kind of pulling together.
Absolutely. And I think when you are leading with what do our customers think, what do they want, what is sensitive to them, you naturally stumble upon things like, well, actually saying mental health instead of emotional health may not be preferred by young people because of the word mental, right? That they don't like that. And so we should use something else. Or, certain images, right? So, for example, for me, when I'm thinking about care, about also adult social care, natural instinct would be to use images that are something, like hands, for example, that are quite, it's soft. It's something that is not very direct. Yes. But actually, there's a whole campaign talking about adult social care and how there are always images of hands. Yes. And instead, here's what you should use. So, being able to just stay open-minded to those, I think that's such a useful skill in those, being open-minded to those sensitivities is really useful in those settings, and just being prepared to get things slightly wrong, and correct them in the future. I think that's you just have to have that ready.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing, isn't it? I think somebody said years ago to me, there's a reason that pencils have rubbers on the end. It's because people expect you to make mistakes. And it's kind of, that's how you learn, is by, you don't know what you don't know. So if you've used those images, but as soon as somebody tells you, you're aware of it then, and then you're much conscious moving forward, not to use photos of hands, or how you can use it, but also other alternatives and solutions.
Absolutely.
To go around it. So then you've kind of moved from capacity, and then last year moved to the University of Liverpool. So welcome.
Thank you.
So how kind of did you find that moving again from another sector, another focus area to the university? Because that's completely different once again.
Absolutely. For me, the university was a place that I wanted to work in for quite a long time, actually. I think for me, having that sense of purpose and feeling like even if I had a bad day, I'm still contributing to something positively. I'm not... I think these kind of organizations, such as a university, right? Fundamentally, we are a force for good, and so even if you have a bad day, you still feel like I'm doing well, actually. So for me, in the university, one of the biggest surprises for me with joining the university was the different processes. It's such an old organization. And there are so many pockets of people, so many different groups, and you might get a completely different answer if you're asking two different groups of people. And I think being part of the Chi Zone, in a way, we are a little bit like an agency. We have different projects within our program, and I feel like this really brings me back to my agency days of having, multiple things happening at the same time, having those different audiences, different groups of people that we're working with, different events, There's so much variety.
No day's the same, is it?
Oh gosh, yes. No 2 days are the same, absolutely is correct. Yeah, so you get to work on such a broad variety of skills, and it's just a really interesting sort of pace.
Yeah. Do you find that you personally prefer that rather than like a Riva where it was probably the focus is on not one thing, but a more singular direction? Whereas, like you say, for an agency, you have multiple clients that you're working with in one go. And then at Chi Zone, it's kind of like you've got different businesses again that you're working with. So you like the variety and I suppose each one brings a new challenge as well. So it keeps you on your toes.
Yes, absolutely. I think I'm definitely, because I still haven't discovered that, and I'm not sure I ever will discover that, that singular thing like SEO that I really feel passionate about. It's more about that variety and being able to express myself creatively and work with different people, learn from different people. So for me, this kind of approach feels right. And it may change in the future. I imagine as perhaps, later in my career, I will be more ready to kind of settle down and, really focus on one in-depth subject more than now just wanting to take it all in.
But I think that's a really nice approach though, because then you're exposing yourself to the wide opportunities of marketing. And a lot of the time, that's what everybody wants, isn't it? They want somebody who can do events and SEO and social media and things like that. So you're a great person on paper because you tick a lot of boxes, but you enjoy it as well. But then, like you say, you can then see from experience and being hands-on as to what works well for you and what you might want later on down the line and later on in your career.
Yes, absolutely. And that's something that for me has been also a shift of perception. I think it's so easy sometimes, especially, you know, when you're looking at job vacancies, you can really feel like, oh, actually, so many of these places, you know, want to have you to have years and years of expertise in SEO.
Yeah.
I don't have that, actually. You know, I've touched upon this but multiple times throughout my career, but actually my focus is much more broad than that.
Yes.
And so I think in those scenarios, you can really feel like actually I'm doing something wrong in that I don't have that specialism. But I think that range is something that can be really beneficial. As you say, so many organizations look for variety and look for someone who's able to say, you know, to move between different tasks and not be afraid to say, I don't know how to do this, but I will find out. You know, I know how to find out how to do this.
Yeah. Has there been anything on the way that you've kind of thought, oh, I've got absolutely no experience in that whatsoever, I've not done that before, but then actually when you've gone and tried it, you thought, actually, this is actually, you know, really fun, or I've really enjoyed it, or I'm actually better at this than I thought? Or has there been any like moments like that in your career so far?
There's definitely been challenges. And, you know, what springs to mind really is creating an invitation to tender. You know,
Yes.
I've never done that before. This
Yes.
was with my, you know, during my time at Capacity, and again as a small organization, you know. So I've come to my team and said, look, I don't know how to do this. Do we have any procurement guidelines? They said, no, we don't. But you know, would you have a stab at writing them, and then we can kind of workshop them and polish them together?
Yeah.
And that was such a big, like, almost blocker in my mind to say, you know, this is not my area of expertise. I don't know what I'm doing here. But being able to work through that was so rewarding, and seeing how that process works and how you can actually, how you can problem solve your way out of these situations, right? So you're saying, what is it that we need to know? What is it that we need to say? Who can help us in kind of finalizing this document? And before you know it, you have that document.
Yeah.
So I think that's been really rewarding. And also for me, I think like video, sort of arranging, filming, you know, producing that kind of side of things is really enjoyable.
There's a lot more work that goes into it behind the scenes than I think people realise as well. You kind of just see the really nice glossy video at the end of it, and maybe a day of booked out for filming, but there is a lot of planning and prep that goes into those as well.
Yes, absolutely. And finding the right locations and finding the right people, and, you know, making sure that people are saying what they're supposed to be saying, or, you know, that
they don't say what they're not supposed to say.
Yes. And even, you know, when we talk naturally, sometimes you don't realize that we didn't actually get that snippet of, you know, the specific words that we need to hear in one sentence.
Yes.
Or actually, you know, yes, they said the thing that we needed them to say, but it took 2 minutes instead of 15 seconds.
Yes. And it all needs chopping down and things.
Yes, absolutely. So being able to see what's happening in real time together with that vision for the future, you know, to that final product, that's so challenging, but again, just really enjoyable.
And sometimes you'll have somebody who maybe in the office environment talks and is very relaxed and natural, and then the second they are put in front of a camera, it's like a whole different person. You're like, what's happened?
Yes, absolutely. And the only way to find out is to put a camera in front of them.
And then, like I say, then you're that person's support system of trying to help them overcome whatever it is that's a sticking point for them to overcome it and get the job done, kind of thing as well. So they're happy as well.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's the bit that I find really enjoyable. It's that sort of element of, you know, doing whatever needs doing.
Yes.
So it can be emotional support, or it can be finding the right person, or, you know, filling out requests, or, you know, documentation. And it's that variety, and just sort of seeing things come to life, coming across those barriers and finding ways around them.
Yeah. That's a really good way of putting it, actually. Have you also found, say, for manufacturing, like you mentioned earlier, like you would be focusing more on like trade press, whereas if you work with retail, it may be social media. So have you kind of had experience in, like, say, a wide variety of those as well, and where you've had to just get stuck in and find what works best for each different client?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's something, again, that you don't know it until you do, right? Until you ask the question. So if you're working with a completely new client or a new industry, you need to ask those questions to see, okay, well, where are people who are your audience? You know,
Yeah.
social media, we can find the stats really easily, but actually, you know, children's residential care, what magazines are there about this?
Yeah.
You know, who do we need to speak to? Who are the big influences in this area?
Yeah.
So there is definitely a lot goes into finding out those right channels. And I think, again, the best way to do that is really just asking those questions.
Yeah. And then based on that as well, so like a trade press would be like, it's the press release has been picked up, or the readership numbers of this. Social media can be quite statistical with engagement, click-throughs, like we said earlier. But there are some campaigns where, how do you kind of like rate the success level? And then what is success to different organizations? Because sometimes it's awareness, sometimes it's engagement. B2C is, or sales, for example, is quite self-explanatory, but B2B can often be, it's the relationship building, isn't it, as well, which is quite hard to put down on a piece of paper. It's not always that simple or easy.
Absolutely. And I think so often it can be about that conversation that you're having with the client to say, you know, what is it that we're looking to achieve and how will we know that we've achieved success? And actually, we might not know for months, right?
Yeah.
If your product is something like a platform for children, young people to access mental health support, they might not need that platform until a year from now.
Yeah.
So our campaign right now in making them aware that this platform exists might not actually kind of reap its rewards until months from now. So
Yeah.
how do you find that comfort, you know, and how do you convince the client that, you know, just because you're not seeing the numbers
Right
immediately,
now. Yeah.
yes, it doesn't mean that they're not there. And I think sometimes the ways to find out, you know, that awareness, for example, is so hard to measure, right? If you're
Yeah.
working for a massive organization, you can afford to conduct research about how many people know your brand. Wonderful. But if you're a small organization, that's really, really challenging. And so,
Yeah.
as you say, it is about those relationships and making the client trust that your work is paying off. They might not see the numbers immediately.
Yes. And then touching on network as well, have you found in your like previous lives, as it were, in agencies, obviously your clientele, your network then is quite wide spec. Have you then found coming over to the university or even health tech that then maybe it's less competitive because it's not necessarily B2C, it's not sales, it's not competitor versus competitor, it's much more a community? Or have you found that, or is a wider network?
Yes, absolutely. I think if you're comparing, you know, say retailers who are selling their products on Very,
Yeah.
there's so many brands that are targeting the same kind of customer. Some of them are targeting different customers on the same platform, but so many of them are actually competitors, right? If you have two hair dryers,
Yeah.
you know, you're not going to buy two hair dryers.
No.
Whereas if you're working with in higher education, you know, if you're promoting a grants program, there's so much more people saying, oh, this isn't right for me, but actually let me share this with my colleagues who this might be
Yes.
right for. So yes, you're absolutely right. That audience can be completely different. I think with public sector as well, there's these communities that you stumble upon that, you know, they are so willing to share or to buy into your product. So again, and kind of provide their support for what you're doing and also influence people around them to also support your product. So
Yeah.
sometimes I think it's finding those groups, those communities that can really unlock massive potential.
Yeah. So you mentioned before you've moved to Kaizone as part of the University of Liverpool. So you're working now with a lot of entrepreneurs, individuals and small communities in the Liverpool City region, and you're kind of helping tell their stories. So how do you kind of go about that? How do you start that? Or how exciting is that as well? Because these are probably some of the people who haven't had their voices heard or their stories told before.
Absolutely. So we are working on a project called Citizen First LCA. So it's delivered with our partners Public Life, and the whole approach is to find these what they called hidden entrepreneurs. So it's people in the community who have a brilliant business idea, but they haven't had the support that they need to kind of to build on those businesses.
Yes.
And so their ideas come from their lived experience. And I think so much, and it's been so rewarding hearing their stories and hearing how people were inspired by something that they're seeing in their everyday life. and how they can come up with an idea that solves that problem, or it might not solve the whole problem of making life more accessible to people with disabilities,
Yes.
but it can tackle one small part of it.
Yes.
And those stories in themselves are so inspirational. I think we as people, we love hearing about other people. We love hearing stories and seeing people who are just like us. They're not a millionaire. They're not someone who started with a small loan of $1 million, right?
Yes.
They are people who live just down the street from us. They have a great idea, and now they're receiving the support to build on their business, to tackle a problem they're seeing. That's been so inspirational and so amazing to contribute to. So hearing their stories and asking them questions about, how they've come to this, I think something that's helped me reflect about my career as well. Because sometimes when we get to that point of, where you are, you feel like, oh, I've always been here. And it's not until you get asked the questions, even like today, of what that journey has been like so far, that you appreciate how far you've come.
Yes, definitely. And it's really, really nice actually, because it's a kind of probably a typical, but nothing is typical in marketing career-wise, as in you actually went to university for a marketing course, which not everybody does, and you kind of find marketing in different ways. And then also you've gone to work for agencies, which some people do. You've moved around and tried and tested different variations of marketing, and then kind of like are hoping to find what it is. But where would you find better stories than those? Because they're from real people who've found real problems or concerns, and like you say, they're so inspirational. So
absolutely, they're inspirational and they're relatable as well, which can be really hard, right? And when you're trying to tell a story of something that is quite, again, I think that different approach to storytelling, right? You don't really tell stories the same way if you are working for a bus company than if you do when you are, working with these people who are looking for support and who have such inspirational stories.
Yeah. And then do you find as well, working within Liverpool City region, there is like the community, because obviously it's all place marketing as well, where we're really showing, like you say, it's people who live down the corner or around your house or where you work. So it's real people with authentic, true stories, but inspirational stories. But it's obviously highlighting those people from the community and to the wider city region as well.
Absolutely. I think especially in the Liverpool City region, there's so much pride in being part of this part of the country, right? And so I think that kind of that's half the job in itself, right? Making people, you don't have to say, okay, well, this person is, only 2 kilometers away from you. You can just say they're from the Liverpool City region, and immediately there's that sense of community.
Yes, definitely. They're automatically backed.
Yes, absolutely. And again, that's something that I think when you think about different places, right? Like London has so many people who are entrepreneurs that it almost feels like, oh, well, that's kind of old news, right? Whereas in Liverpool, you've got, okay, this person who they really don't come from a sort of entrepreneurial background.
Yeah.
They're just a regular person who had a brilliant idea. I think that really makes people feel like, oh, you know what? Maybe I
can
could
do it. Yeah.
Yes, that could be me.
So where do you see kind of maybe the skills or areas of marketing in the future? How do you think it will change? Because obviously you've seen it from academia, university, and then through agencies, and now you're back at university, but obviously on the other side of being at a university. So is there any parts of the job that you can see are really growing?
I think there's so much to learn, right?
Yes.
That's something that I don't think I quite appreciated in my childhood, being surrounded by people who are really clever, right? Is the more you learn about something, the more you're aware of just how little you know.
Yeah.
And being open to asking questions. So actually, I couldn't even tell you where specifically those skills might be. I just feel like they're everywhere. There's so much to learn, both within marketing and also contributing, from sales or from, operational side of things, and even, videography or production, or there's just such a wide variety of skills, and you don't ever know what you're going to need. So I feel like for me, I still very much feel like there's just as much for me to learn as, 8 years ago when I first started working.
Yeah. So kind of what would be your tips or advice for people who are young marketers looking to go into marketing or on their marketing career and just kind of looking for? Everyone wants a bit of tips and advice.
For me, the biggest thing you can do for yourself is to be willing to learn, is to be willing to say, I don't know some of this, or I don't know any of this.
Yeah.
Or actually, I feel like I know this, but let me consult with people and see, maybe I've missed something.
Yes.
It's that willingness to absorb more information and to take it all in, and not, I don't think that necessarily means that you show up and say, I don't know what I'm doing here, right? You're saying, I have assumptions.
Yes.
I know what I'm working towards, and this is my approach. What other approaches might there be?
Yeah.
And just being open to learning new skills, to moving to different areas, to building connections with different people from completely different backgrounds, and seeing what you can learn from them, because we can learn from everyone.
Yeah, it's never ending, continuous learning, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And the jobs, even like say video production, is changing because there's different equipment, different tools and technology that's coming around. So that is developing and changing so much as well.
Absolutely.
And then with that comes captions and copyright. Like it's all moving and developing as we speak. So
Absolutely. And, AI has been just such a major development
yeah,
that when I think back to, 5 years ago, being in an agency and writing social media posts, that's not how people work now, right? People in those positions now are using AI. We would never have dreamt of being able to do that, right? To have ChatGPT create, 10 different posts for you to tweak slightly and go with them. And I think that's a different landscape, and it provides such a challenge as well for agencies in kind of justifying why you need people with this expertise who can say, actually, we do need to tweak this copy. We can't just go with what ChatGPT wrote.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that landscape is changing so much, and it's going to keep changing. So I think, again, just being open to different experiences, different skills.
Yeah.
That's the way to stay afloat, I suppose.
Perfect. And then just to end, is there a campaign that either you will have worked on yourself, or you've seen in an agency, or you've just seen in the general world that's really stuck with you, or that you just really, really liked?
So for me, the campaign that sticks most in my mind is the Lithuanian Red Cross. So Lithuanian Red Cross a couple of years ago did a campaign which was called Second Aid.
Okay.
So it was all of the things that you're going to need if you don't know first aid. So it was really driving people to take up more first aid lessons, to build those skills.
Yeah.
And so what they did is they built this second aid kit, which included a body bag, a candle, blood cleaning spray, those really jarring items.
Yeah.
To really drive that point home that actually we don't think about first aid as something that, we don't need it in the everyday life, but it can really make a difference in saving someone's life versus needing
What you
all of
would
those
need.
things.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think just that shock value would also driving that point home so easily that actually, yes, I don't know how to resuscitate someone, but I could know.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as attending a course.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting, because it's like, say, it's the symbolism, isn't it? And it would shock you to see that, because it's not something you would expect. You'd expect to see plasters or...
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so they sent out these kits to some Lithuanian influencers, and, just seeing their videos of the sort of unboxing, and seeing that is what we would feel as well, right? As you say, it's not items that you come across in your everyday life. And so that really, it's such a simple twist on that, this is what you might need.
But so really, effective.
Yes, so effective.
Fantastic. So thank you so much, Goda, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So that was Marketing Monologues. Make sure to click, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.